By Candlelight, Stories for the Dark. Chapter 12, The Watchacallit. In the annals of history, nothing stands stronger than the whole damn truth. Here is a tale well worth mentioning. In the rolling hills of Wyoming, a baby was born. A long time ago, by the light of campfire, and nobody knows exactly when. A woman cried out in childbirth pain. Flames crackled under the starlit sky. Soon she gave birth, and her labors came to an end. The new child glowed with light. His father stood by, sparkling with immense joy. Here lay a very special infant baby who appeared mostly human, but there was something more to this. Mom knew well her son was extraordinary. She'd grown up on the East Coast and was the daughter of Romany parents. The relatives didn't exactly practice one standard religion. On Sundays, the family went to the woods and collected herbs for healing. Grandmother could gaze into a glass jar and see the future. Once she told her granddaughter, "One day you will give birth to a special son. He will be both animal and man and have the power of sight and singing." Years later, here she sat with a new child on her lap, wrapped in blankets. His small face looked almost too perfect. The words of her grandmother came bouncing back into her mind. Surely this was the son who was to become great among men. Years followed, and Tom grew up quite tall. His mother had forgotten about the premonition. Nothing seemed out of sorts, and in all he seemed like a healthy growing boy. He played sports, went fishing, hunted with his dad, learned how to rope and ride horses, drove a team of oxen, plowed the fields, and tended to the livestock. Tom was a full-fledged farmer and ranch hand by the time he turned 18. His family operated a farm near the border of Wyoming and North Dakota. The adventurous young man often rode his favorite horse into parts of Montana. When the work was done at home, Tom found a slew of opportunities among ranchers throughout Big Sky country. Many a day, a week, an hour, or month was spent cowboying up and down the river. Locals knew Tom as one of the best and brightest. Honest and forthright, the boy raised spirits with his hard work and lively songs. He'd sing to the rising sun. At night he'd sing a ballad and entertain the camp. His partners sang along. He remembered every tune that was ever shared. Tom was a walking library of stories and jokes, poems and tales. Some considered him the father of cowboy music in the great American West. As winter set in, Tom returned to the ranch in Wyoming. His mother was making supper one night and brought up the vision from her grandmother. "I don't know, but you turned out just dandy." A second later, there was howling in the distance outside the south-facing door. Everyone stopped and listened. "Probably just coyotes who want some food." The howling went on and on. The sounds came closer. Tom's mother became frightened. "It's a spirit! It's an evil spirit, I tell you." Her eyes got big and she dropped the dinner plate. Food shattered as the ceramic plate shattered into pieces. "Oh, Mom, let me go out and see what's there." Tom scrambled up from the chair and bolted out the front door. His boots scraped haphazardly on the dry dirt as he brambled toward the strange noises emitting from a grove of sagebrush. It didn't take long for him to reach the general location. The crickets were silent. It was dead silent. Tom thought he must have scared the coyotes away. "Hello, anyone there?" The voice echoed into the dust and disappeared. A few seconds later, he heard something. A tall figure stepped forth from the brush. He could see enough by the light of half of a moon. The man was reddish and strange looking. He grinned with a mouthful of white teeth, set against dark red skin. "Aha, I found you." 2 horns jutted from behind his skull, just above the ear on each side. Tom saw a small, pointy red tail wagging behind. "Who are you?" The man laughed, and his voice convoluted into several voices at once. "I'm your uncle, boy." "Ha ha ha." "You're my uncle?" "Yes, and it's time you joined the rest of us over here." Tom was in shock. "Over where?" The man pointed to a large fire that was growing from a small point of light. He could feel the heat on his skin. This was the strangest campfire he'd ever seen. In the flames, he saw faces and shades of blue. Suddenly, strange sounds emitted from the center of the fire. Little people danced in circle clockwise. Small faces looked over with shining eyes. Laughter sounded like children combined with wild geese. The cackling continued as the fire grew into a perfect circle resting on the horizon. "This is where you belong, boy." Tom took this as his final warning and turned to run away. As fast as he could muster, his legs took off running. Behind his back, the laughter turned to shrieks. "No, you don't!" Tom felt the back of his head jolt with a sudden blast of pressure. His lower back cramped so that he could no longer move. While falling to the ground, his legs catapulted frontwards and seemed to shrink. The top of his scalp stung with points of pain. He fell and tucked into a ball. The red man laughed hysterically as Tom felt himself lose consciousness. Soon all was silent. Tom was out like a light. Darkness ensued for many hours. It seemed like nowhere but everywhere. Time did not exist. He slept through the night, but not everything was as it was before. He awoke to dust on his face and eyes. Tom coughed as he returned to his feet. Something felt odd. He looked over at the front door to his family homestead. He started limping slowly in the direction of his mother. When he reached the garden fence line, he saw his mother come out of the doorway. "No, you don't." She held up a rifle and took aim. Kablam! Much to Tom's shock and surprise, his own mother was taking shots at him. "Damn jackrabbits eating my garden!" Blam! Blam! Mom reloaded and shot 2 more times. Fortunately, her aim was extremely poor. Jackrabbits? Did she say jackrabbits? Tom scuttled vigorously to the barn door and dove under the wooden frame. On the inside, he scooted close to the mirror near the first stall. To his astonishment, he did not see what he was expecting. Instead of a 6-foot-tall young cowboy with a small mustache and curly hair, Tom saw a 3-foot-tall jackrabbit with a pair of antlers. He turned his head left, and the rabbit turned left. He nodded up and down, and the animal did the same. How was this possible? Was this all a dream? Before much longer, the barn door burst open as Tom dove into a pile of hay. "I know you're in here, Rabbit. And while you're at it, can you tell me where my son went?" She wasted no time and took another poor shot into the pile of hay. The would-be human, but now jackrabbit with horns, made a quick break for the other side. He emerged swiftly from the shaded side of the barn and continued running aimlessly towards the small creek behind the farmhouse. When reaching his destination, he dropped into the water. His thirst was great. After drinking a gallon of water, he looked for the shade of a nearby willow tree to lay down and find solace until the situation could be sorted. He had a sinking feeling this was serious and permanent. With all this trauma, he fell back asleep for a short time. His body was in shock. Thankfully, none of the bullets found their mark. His mother had no idea her son had transformed into something else. Tom raised his chin and tried to speak. All that came out was a high-pitched squeak. He tried again. This time the voice held on to a single tone and sang out for a few seconds more. He couldn't speak, but at least he could sing. Kinda. The day was terrible, but finally came to an end. Tom found a spot far away from the family ranch to curl up and fall asleep. A month later, he had traveled many miles towards the location of his friends and co-workers in Montana. The miles of travel wore on his little legs. He imagined there could be a better way. Up ahead, he saw the steam rising and saw a steam train parked next to a brand new railway station. As quick as a bug, he galloped over to an open rail car and hopped inside. The hobo, asleep, didn't notice the wild animal that just leaped across his dirty bedroll. Tom found a secret hiding spot behind an empty oak barrel. Soon the engine started up as steam began to blow. The whistle shouted a lonesome song skyward. For the first time, Tom really felt his heart sink. He knew this would be the last time. He'd never come this way again. The train chugged forth cross-country eastbound. Montana was up ahead. The rabbit boy munched on straw caught in his hair. It was a good thing he'd eaten bear grass just before hopping on the train. Hours and miles stretched on. Through the night, the iron horse rattled through town after ranch after empty field. Early one morning, the train stopped and gushed a hiss of pressure released. Brakes scraped and squealed as the car came to a complete stop. Before the bum could wake and see, Tom leaped out of a hole in the sliding door. He jogged through a new country. Everything around him was different. Instead of pine trees and dry sagebrush, he saw evergreens and wetlands. Where was he? He looked around and noticed a sign, "Welcome to Washington." Unbeknownst to Tom, his train had overshot Montana by 2 states. Now he was in a strange land. Mountains loomed around the train station. Easton, Washington, was the exact location according to the railway depot signage. Albeit strange, his new location felt cool to the skin. Grass and edible plants were everywhere. He gorged himself on leafy greens of all shapes and sizes. Building a camp was not a problem. Summer still lingered, so the nights were warm. It was no problem finding branches and covering to make shelter. This wasn't so bad after all. Tom followed a trail past 3 mountain lakes. He had plenty to drink and eat and shelter to sleep in. There was absolutely no reason to return to Montana or Wyoming or anywhere back east. This was paradise. At a point overlooking the railroad on Snoqualmie Pass, Tom decided to create a permanent home. He gathered enough small logs and branches to build a sort of log cabin. There, just above civilization and near a small lakefront cavern, he came to stay. Now, Tom had horns, and that enabled him to dig easily. After some time, he found a way to create tunnels from one place to another. These long, elaborate passages speckled the hillside down into North Bend, Washington. Life was good, but very lonely. He longed for a companion. One summer day, he was out near Chickaman Ridge, looking for a new place to live, when he heard a sudden chirping. The whole hillside was chirping and singing. Since Tom was an avid singer himself, he took notice. The melody was simple but pleasing. 3 notes echoed back and forth. Other voices parroted and imitated. One started and the others finished the melody. It was beautiful. What were these small creatures with a similar talent for music? A whistling marmot, of course. Tom began a similar tune and chirped out a funny song. The marmot stopped and listened. They didn't expect another animal to sing like them. Like a ping-pong tournament, the 2 species sang to each other. Eventually he could understand their language. In only a few hours, Tom could communicate in complete sentences to the other. They spoke into the night. He asked to see their king. The king and queen of the marmots introduced themselves, and their daughters too. "Where do you come from, friend?" Tom smiled and replied, "I come from the land of horses and the setting sun, where cowboys ride and work is never done." The marmots listened with care. Soon Tom was talking with the chief's daughter. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what happened next. A jackalope married a lady marmot in a huge underground wedding. Everyone came to the party. A giant feast followed dancing, and presents were given to everyone who came. It takes a low intelligence to follow the next part of the story. Tom and his new wife had babies. The new children were half jackalope and half marmot. As my Aunt Margaret used to say, they were, Watchacallit? They were called Watchacallits. The new breed of whistling, singing, horned, jackrabbit, subterranean marmot people could burrow miles and miles of tunnels without breaking a sweat. Soon they multiplied. Thousands of Watchacallit families spread out all the way to Seattle. Every possible mountain was drilled with holes like Swiss cheese. Parked cars on Squawk Mountain near Issaquah suddenly fell inward. Entire trees swallowed into the earth. The Watchacallits were taking over the land. One day, as tourists stood on the observation deck of the Space Needle in Seattle, the north side began to sink into the ground that had been undermined by several Watchacallits. The structure shook and leaned over like the Tower of Pisa. Too many people and too many Watchacallits. And that's the end of the story.